Now, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Ebenezer Owusu, in an exclusive interview with JoyNews, has categorically denied allegations of sexual harassment against him by the CEO of Africa Integras, Andrea Pizziconi. In a tweet, Andrea alleged that the quote, "sex for grade" investigative piece that indicated some lectures at the University of Ghana resonates deeply with her. But Professor Owusu says the woman is only bitter. He spoke with my colleague, Justice Bedu.
You just need to treat it with the contempt that it deserves. You've seen me, and you can tell. Personally, I would describe the lady as somebody who is desperate, somebody who is bitter, and extremely angry. She's full of anger and frustrated because she had a project running. She intended to invest 64 million. And then the investor was going to pay out of that when completed, 25 million every year for the next 25 years. So 25 million every year for 25 years, up to 600 million. Yes. And now it gets to a point where she's unable to continue. Obviously, she will struggle, because by now she would be sitting back, counting her golden eggs. And those golden eggs are not coming anymore. So obviously she would do whatever. So I personally am not too surprised at what she's doing, because truly it's something that I anticipated could happen, and it's happened.
Prof, you describe this woman as someone who is bitter, but this is a decision that was taken by the university, and like you say, it's something that, according to you, you justifiably took. Why would he then be making this allegation at your person?
Yeah, because she thinks I'm the leader. Yes, she thinks I'm the leader. She had said several times that I'd never granted her the audience that I should have granted it. The fact of the matter is that I decided that I don't work as an individual. I work in a team. So you can't be meeting me as an individual. So whenever you come, be prepared to meet the team. But she protested. So she felt I didn't want to open up to her. Yes. So she expressed a bit of anger at my approach towards these things. But I'd make sure that anytime she came, she met with senior management. The only time that she booked an appointment that she wanted to meet with me in my office, deep down in my heart, something told me no. And that was the last time I had an interaction with her.
And on JoyNews' Prime on Thursday evening, CEO of Africa Integras sought to clarify what she said in her previous statement, prompting a response from the VC. Well, she said she never accused the VC of harassing her, but what was reported was a misrepresentation of her tweet. She spoke to Israel Lai.
The first statement that you put out, quotes that you ascribe to the University of Ghana Vice-Chancellor, and this is the part that I find critical. Quote, "Turn around, everyone. I want to give her a proper hug. So I know well the pressure these women are." So I want to understand in what context you brought this line, "Turn around, everyone. I want to give her a proper hug."
It's because he said it, and he made the first statement. So these are just statements of fact. You can't take away our power to use and to call it what we want. I didn't accuse him of harassment, and did, especially because I don't want to distract from this deeper issue. I don't recall the detailed hug to remember. I know my discomfort, but I'm not, specifically, I'm not trying to accuse him of so many other things that are high. For example, the attacks he made against me, just that I tracked by using my womanly power to coerce his predecessor.
You've said something about him. He's not too excited about it, or it turned out that it was reported that he said sexual harassment. Would you want to say exactly what he's done wrong to you?
I think a statement later this afternoon, which I to the Vice Chancellor. I addressed it to the professor. So I think that pretty much encompasses my situation.
Which is exactly what, if you could just articulate it?
Rather than, there was no harassment, there was a complete dismissal of credibility. The attacks that he's made against, in terms of the convocation meetings, his releases, the slanderous statements to the media in the last 2 years, all of which, by the way, about trying to think of the bigger picture, which is how do we allow people to let off some steam and say, so that we can focus on getting those buildings built, which is what everybody should be worried about. All of that, what's the root of it? Where does it come from? Why is he attacking me and not W.P. Carey, the investor who ultimately took it? Because it wasn't me, actually. I was the one that was humbly showing up in Ghana every month, hoping to meet, to find common ground and to renegotiate what's required in order to put the project back.
And this week has been an eventful one in terms of conversations around sexual harassment on the back of the BBC Africa's documentary Sex for Grades. Joining me in the studio this morning for the weekend review on the topic are Nanaba Anamwa and Dinah Adiko. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
So we started this week with a documentary, then we went into Andrea's issue. There have been so many stories on social media circulating with abuse. Did we need this story to break the culture of silence which seems to engulf us as women in Ghana?
Absolutely. I mean, for a lot of ladies, they go through this, and not just ladies, men as well go through this. And you're definitely unsure of the right time to come out. And so when one person speaks, then you see an avalanche of experiences pouring out. So I think I'm very happy that the BBC did that expose. I'm happy that they released it. I'm happy that a lot of students especially are talking about their experiences.
Right. Dinah, what do you think?
I think the story of sexual harassment has been around. We've been hearing it, we've been sharing it, it's been discussed, but I think this time what has made a difference is the people involved. The BBC on one hand, and then the University of Ghana, Premier University in Ghana, and then some of the actors like Professor Jampo, who is very known to the country. So then it's built interest. I think the twist has been that reputation issues have caught on, so people are interested. It sounds like a scandal, and therefore we are holding on to it. I trust it would have been swept out, and the next issue will be on the table if these actors were not the one in the news. So it's a sad story, but it's good for all of us. I think it's held the discussion on for long, and now we're thinking, how do we move it away from just discussing what it is to get real actions and suggest solutions to how organizations and institutions can address it. And because the practice is prevalent not only in school or academic institutions, it's prevalent at the workplaces, it's prevalent in the churches, at very worrying state, and it's also going on even in our homes, and the sexual abuse of different forms. So it's in every space. This morning on radio we heard about somebody who was almost molested in a trot or in a bus. So it cuts across our society, and it's important that we keep the conversation going, but hope not that international media keep picking on our stories when we sit as if we do not know what's going on.
Now, Dinah mentions the fact that it's not just sex for grades, it's sex for jobs, it's sex for Momo, it's sex for...
sex for Momo, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it was on Facebook. It's sex for everything. What are we not doing right in educating or empowering our girls?
I think we're not talking about it enough. We shy away from issues around sex. We are not giving people the platform, the confidence to come out and talk openly about their experiences. For instance, if any student had gone to the university council, and I'm not talking about just Legon, any of the universities in Ghana, to go and report a case of sexual harassment from a lecturer, would the university take it seriously? Would the dean take it seriously? Would they investigate? Would they bother? Would they blame her for the way she dressed instead? Would they say that, okay, this is what you said and this is what warranted the action from the lecturer? So I think that it's a perfect time to talk about it. And I think if you've been harassed either in school, in the classroom, in church, in a trot, and I found that horrendous. It was too much for me to handle.
Yeah.
You know, it's happening everywhere. And so we should give people the confidence to talk about their stories, to talk about, to share their experiences, because we all draw lessons from them. And a lot of the time, people don't know that they are in the wrong. They don't know they are harassing women. So when you talk about it, people pick a lesson or two from it, that, oh, for what I said, for what I did, I think I crossed the line, and I can't go that way any longer.
But have you been harassed before?
So many times. So many times.
How have you dealt with it?
For instance, I hardly get it, you know, physically, one-on-one. There are times when I shared this with Daniel in the morning, on the morning show, that I ran into a man that I respected so much. He had never seen me in person, but I see him on TV a lot. I've even engaged him on the phone in an interview, and then he said, oh, I didn't know your chest was this full.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And at that particular moment, all the respect fizzled out, and I dealt with him that don't you ever, like even in your wildest dreams, ever say this to me again. And I told him off, you know. And then there are times when people will send you messages, they'll send you videos. I mean, how can you take a picture of me from my page and record yourself wanking over my page, and you reach orgasm, and you think that if I send this to Nanabo on WhatsApp, she should feel so good about herself? That is harassment. And I was getting that all the time when I was using my 0244 for WhatsApp. So I had to change my number. And now I change my number every month or every 2 months. And that's very uncomfortable for me, but I have to do it. Now they've stopped doing it on WhatsApp because they don't have access to my number. They come to my DM on Instagram, and the last time I had to put one out on Instagram and tag Instagram. Instagram actually came back to my DM to apologize to me that they are bringing up policies and measures to guard against such activity. Somebody just sent me a picture of his penis in my DM and said, anytime I see your picture, this is how I feel. How can you do that? So I put his picture there, I put his penis there, and I tagged Instagram. Because Instagram doesn't give you the opportunity to close your direct messages, but Twitter does, you know. And so I get it all the time, you know, and I'm sure you experience it as well. So the more we talk about it, the more we draw lessons from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Dan, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit shocked by that. Do you think it's dependent on maybe the jobs that we do, our exposure out there, or it's just something that's just pervasive, like people are just generally perverts?
I think it's dependent on our sex or our gender as women.
Okay.
I think that is the key, because we agree that men are also being sexually harassed, but the scale, enormity, and all of that is heavier on women.
Because they don't report it.
And maybe even the nature of its prevalence and the way we are responding to it as victims. Men are responding to sexual harassment in a different way from women. Men are seeing it as an opportunity that they shouldn't miss. Women are seeing it. And so it can be traced again sometimes to our socialization, the narrative around sex, who benefits from sex. So then that's why you can hear sex for mobile money. So it means that when there's sexual interaction, the man is the one who benefits. So then woman benefits from money. So the narrative around sex, the socialization of our girls and our boys, our men and women, have all fed into a culture and a system that allows perverts to survive and thrive and get away with it. So it's difficult, but again, if you're in the media, the kind of work you do makes it even worse. And then people are allowed to call you all sorts of names because you do a certain kind of work and nobody sympathizes with you and you've allowed yourself. So then we go back to victim blaming. And when we are busy doing that, we are creating a system of impunity and security for the perpetrators. What does that do? Our system shall not be sanitized and cured of this problem.
Yeah, at all. But let's move on, because this morning on the morning show we talked about the thin line between flirting and sexual harassment, because out of necessity, I mean, when you meet a woman, you have to, if you like her, you need to make a move, you need to break the ice. So there's flirting, there's complimenting, and then there's harassment. Nanaba, do you want to just take us through the difference between these three?
I think Diane gave a perfect explanation that if the comment makes the person who's supposed to receive it uncomfortable, then it is not flirting. You are not flirting, you're not complimenting. If if you tell me that, oh, I look good in my dress, and it's just a very fair comment, and I say thank you back. That's
I like the way you say it's a fair comment.
It's a fair comment because I have a mirror in my house and I realize that I look good in the dress. So you're just confirming what my mirror told me. So that's fine. But if you have to say you look good in your dress with a certain look, and Danielle brought in licking your lips.
Oh yeah.
You know, you lick your lips and you say you look good in your dress. I mean, you're crossing a certain line. And
or anytime I see you in this particular dress, I begin to feel like making, you know.
You've seen that video of Acrobat. That's a move where he says, when I see you like that, then my something is rising.
You see? So, I mean that's beyond flirtation. It gets now into harassment, and particularly if I don't like it. And most importantly, if I told you once before that I don't like this kind of correspondence, and you come back with it again, you are harassing, and the systems would have to activate it to take you on.
So is the key thing in this whole issue the phrase, I don't like it? Is it acceptable up until the point where we don't like it?
I guess so. And I think as women, we should be bold enough to tell people that we don't like this. They will call you all sorts of names. They will call you rude, they will call you arrogant, they'll call you a bitch. But you need to understand that you have some dignity to protect, and you need to stop people because they say it once, twice, and you don't stop them and they think you like it, and they'll continue. They do 1, 2, they'll cross over to 3 and 4. The next minute they are raping you, or if it's a child, they're defiling the child.
But then what is tricky about that is that given power dynamics and relationship, and depending on who is doing what, we should be aware that it can be difficult for people to sometimes say no to you. That is why we need structures and systems that you can go to and lodge a complaint, and those systems should be effective enough to pick up on the matter. Not everybody is going to be able to say no, stop it, because of who is involved, because their livelihood is at stake, because their safety is at stake, because there's everything, and it's just difficult again because we bring up our children. When we are young, we're brought up to respect power, to respect authority, to be obedient to people. So people come to your house and invite your children, to adult men, to sit on their laps. And we allow and encourage our children. Uncle says, come and sit on his lap. And we have dealt with cases of sexual defilement of children where those uncles who had children sitting on their laps in the presence of their parents actually molested them. So there's a whole systemic issue that needs to be tackled from all fronts. Civil society has a lot of work to do.
Now there's the issue of evidence. Because it's always my word against yours, it's one person's word against yours. And when we're talking about students and people in places of authority, how do we improve the structures? Because if you haven't recorded on your phone, if you don't have anything to prove that this conversation went on in a closed room, what do you do? There's a very helpless feeling, isn't it?
It is a helpless feeling. But we don't give up on that because, mind you, when you make your report and the system, wherever you reported to is effective, they are also going to open up their investigation. And that includes talking to other people their alleged harasser interacts with and say, is there a pattern? Is something emerging? Are there other ways? If we still don't have evidence to address this, do we reposition this person that the power and influence he or she seems to have that gives her the ability to dominate would be reduced, and therefore we keep the environment safer? So even if we don't have evidence, it's still important that report is made. And we know it's very difficult, easier said than done, but it's worth trying. But most importantly, fortunately, we are in a system where it's easier to pick evidence than before. Recording your calls are easy when you are suspicious of the person. Text messages are easy. And sometimes it's so, they are so carried away in their evil ways that they go ahead to send messages and leave evidence and leave the trail. So keep those ones and then don't delete them. Sometimes out of shame of what people see on your phone, we are quick to delete the messages, but it's very important. Save them, screenshot them, shoot them into your storage spaces wherever they are, and you could find it useful in the future. But anymore, let perpetrators understand, because we notice from all the discussion around the UGBBC thing is that people are worried about how they are seen, perceived, and reputation, and so it's more scary to people than the distraction to the lives of the victims. So we also want potential perpetrators and harassers to understand that, look, her story, she could receive all the bashing, or he could receive all the bashing on social media for being a bad person. But trust me, your reputation just got washed away.
Exactly. And Nanaba, finally, before you go, we know that there are women who offer the sex
yes.
for the grace, or offer the sex for the momo. And sometimes it makes our fight a little bit harder when women choose to take the easier way out. What do you have to say to women who are doing that?
Well, I think it's down to laziness. If you're in school, if you're in school and everyone is in a class competing to get first class, second class, what have you, and you think that the easiest way is to throw yourself at a lecturer, don't turn around and later accuse the lecturer of sexually harassing you, because you gave it out. And how many men can withstand such temptations? It has to stop. We need to advise our young ladies more. I think there's a lot of pressure as well from social media, and we should have a wider conversation about the pressure from social media. People are in a hurry to leave the classroom to go and do other things, to go and make up and take pictures. You know, the focus is not so much on education. Of course, there are some students who are very focused as well. They're there for a reason. But you find a few nuts in there who would think that, oh, this lecturer is single, or this lecturer looks easy, so when I go and show my cleavage, he'll fall for it, and then we have a relationship going. We need to talk about them. I think Diane's organization has a lot of work to do. As they're talking about sexual harassment from the men, they should be talking about what the women also do. Because it sometimes is really uncomfortable to listen to.
And sometimes to watch.
Yes, to watch as well.
But just to chip in, for girls who throw themselves at men and people in power, that also adds up to sexual harassment on the men. So then the men, instead of saying, I felt helpless and I took advantage of her, should activate the system that does not allow report.
Just like they'll be laughed at.
And so then we have a problem with our culture about sex, men, and how we socialize them. So men should begin to recognize that we call throwing out or seducing is a form of sexual harassment and should report. Don't take advantage of somebody who you have power over and cry foul that I was seduced. You really cannot get away with it, because if the institution says you can't have this kind of relationship, you are someone in power, she knows she can get something from you, she seduces you, you fall for it, you don't have an excuse. So again, I mean, we just would have to be aware of what the policies and the...
Yes, we do. Thank you very much for joining me this morning, Nanaba. And Diane, I wish you the very best of the weekend.